of your world hunt me down inside. I should run and go, I should run and hide, but I'm stuck on you. You make me feel like a fire. You make me feel like a kid. You make me feel like each other. 5 galaxies swirling in Stefan's quintet. I wanna tell you how I feel tonight. I keep trying but the words ain't right. Nothing's fitting for a kind like you. I'm never speechless when the earth's my fuel. Killing the time, building a fire, wrapped in each other as we fall in love. I've never met a girl like you, never met a girl like you. Traces of your lips linger on my waist. I don't wanna go, I don't wanna wait. I'm needing you. We shouldn't speak of this magic. We should just say what they know. I've heard a rumor of humans who sniff out the good things to suck out the soul. I wanna tell you how I feel tonight. I keep trying but the words ain't right. Nothing's fitting for a kind.
Hello viewers, welcome to our Lounge Alley. This is Figure Drawing Basics Part 73. I'm your host and I'm introducing newcomers to the Patreon page. There's 6 tiers altogether and each one has something different to offer. I'm gonna start out with tier 1, which is $2 per month. It's an affordable one. You get access to Discord server. It's a channel. It's a place for everybody to get to know one another, create an interesting community, share your ideas, share your interests. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Discord, but those of you who are not, that's basically what it is. It's a chat room for all sorts of things, really. Talk about art that you like, talk about a movie or a series that you're into, post memes and photos, or post images of work that you've done and see what people say, what kind of feedback you can get. Really, it's just a place for a tight-knit community for people to have a place to go to every day and see some familiar faces. All right, so with that as well, you will get your name listed in the credits. That's going to be after the stream, at the end of the stream, at the end of each stream, I'm going to do credits, and you're going to see your patron name there listed as a thank you for keeping our Lounge Alley going. Next, we got Tier 2 All Access patrons. $5 per month gets you access to all of my work, including exclusive content. So that's going to be things that I'm not going to be posting to any other social media platform aside from Patreon. You'll also see work in progress behind the scenes, and you'll get the previous tier benefits. Next, we got Tier 3 Critique Submission tier, $15 per month. This is a really exciting one for me. Like, I really wanted to put this up so that I could see some of the work that you guys are making. Really, it's not limited to any skill level. You could be a beginner, you could be intermediate, you could be all the way up to advanced, and you could submit work to see what you could do to improve. Now, I'm going to be doing hands-on demonstration. I'm going to be doing it on Clip Studio Paint over the work that you're submitting to show what you could do to make your drawing look better and give you some tips on how to improve drawing in general. There are just a couple of requirements there. You can access the Patreon page by going to the About section on Twitch channel, and you'll see the Patreon link all the way on the right side of the screen. This critique sesh is going to be every Friday. So it would be today, Once you guys do start submitting work, it's going to be substituting whatever you guys are going to be seeing today from 8 until 10 p.m., where I'm going to be critiquing work live on stream. And of course, you get all the previous tier benefits as well. But yeah, take your time, read through it. And if you got any questions, as always, ask away. I'll be happy to answer them and write you back. Next, we got Kickstarter Patron, Tier 4, $25 per month gets you a high-resolution digital painting done of you live on stream every Thursdays from 8 until 10 p.m. I'm going to be doing, a live portrait drawing of an image that you submit of yourself. I do encourage you guys to get creative with it. If you're into cosplay, that's cool. You could submit a photo of you from your head down to your chest. That way it's going to be fun for everybody, including yourself. It's going to be fun for the stream, for people to see what you come up with, what kind of creative costume or design or kind of mask you decide to wear, or what kind of makeup you decide to put on, etc. You guys can see a list here, but it's not required. You could send me a simple photo of you from your head down to your chest, and I will start that process every Thursday from 8 until 10. And once it's finished, I'm going to send it to you, and you could do with it as you wish. Next, we got Tier 5 Artist Promotion. This is another one that I'm really excited about. $25 per month gets you 5-minute airtime on the Art Lounge Alley. I'm going to promote you prior to the stream, so everybody knows that it's going to be a special intro. They're going to anticipate to see your work. And I'm also going to promote your social media or website, whatever it is that you got that you want others to see, and check out what else you got going. It's not limited to illustrators. It is limited to intermediate or advanced artists. But if you know anybody in any of these categories, let them know about the Art Lounge Alley. Introduce them. For this tier, you get 5-minute airtime at the beginning. And as I mentioned, I'll also promote your social media. And the reason why this submission requires a 5-minute video is so that you could present your work the way you want it to be presented. You could present it as creatively as you'd like it to be. There aren't really that many limits. But there are some requirements on here just to make sure that people are pretty serious about their submission, pretty serious about what they're submitting, and their viewership that they're going to be getting. There's some tips, there's some ideas for each artistic category. So this is the only one that really requires a little bit of reading and does have some requirements to be selected. So once again, just take your time, read through it, and ask any questions. Any questions you got about this tier, I'll be happy to answer them. Finally, we got Tier 6 Private Tutoring, limited to 15 people, but not limited to your skill level. So another stream where you can, another tier rather, that you can submit your work regardless of your skill level, and for $65, you will get 4 videos per month. So 1 video per week, 30-minute video, curtailed just for you. I'm going to be giving you hands-on demonstration, step-by-step instruction, what you could do to improve your drawing, what you could do to improve drawing in general. And I will also include the PSD file for whatever I'm going to be working on. So you could be, so you could explore it at your own pace. You could explore it at your own time, whenever, to get a better idea with it, play around with it. And it does require for you to submit something. So even if you're a beginner, just submit anything that you're working on, something that you want to improve on, something you want to get better in. I will also include some homework for you guys to do through the week, just so that you could keep the fire burning, you could keep practicing. A very important step in becoming better in pretty much anything is to continuously practice throughout the week. Even if it's 30 minutes, it's better than nothing. But if you could dedicate some time, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours is excellent. But yeah, any amount of time daily would get you very good results. So I'm going to be doing that to help you guys excel. And you will also get a private Discord channel with this, and that way we can continue to interact. You could leave me comments, you could leave me questions. It's just going to be between me and you. Nobody else is going to see it, so you could feel free to ask any sorts of questions, any sorts of comments, and you could leave me the progress on what it is that you're working on for me to get back to you about and give you some feedback. So that pretty much does it. Take your time, read through it on the Patreon page. And also, if you guys are interested in seeing what the previous special intros are, you guys can check those out by going into the video section and filtering the videos based on collection. There you will see a highlight folder, which I should change to just special intros, but it just shows special moments within streams, and you guys can check out all the ones that I've had previously there. So that pretty much does it. And that said, y'all, I am going to be switching over to where we left off yesterday. So I'm pretty excited actually today. Last night I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what is going on with this app that I'm using. With the application, what is going on with getting some feedback from it, or some lag or whatever, and I ended up making some great discoveries. So the stream is a lot smoother. It's not killing my computer in terms of CPU usage. And I also figured out something that I'm going to be talking about in the next stream. Actually, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that for here. So let's just jump into where we left off yesterday. I'm going to continue working on this as I'm talking about it. But basically, each of these figureheads or faces demonstrate light source. These figures just represent where a light source is coming from and how it affects the face. So for those of you who are just tuning in for the very first time, we started off with this head right here, which shows this. This is an example just to show like a summarized example of where the light source is. So by taking a look at this, this means that the light source is directly on the face. So there will be shadow underneath the nose and underneath the chin, but other parts of the face are illuminated by the light. Now, obviously, it's not as exaggerated as this. It's just to show where the darkest points on the face are going to be, and an easy way to illustrate the light source. So, as you can see here, there are slight shadows there to define the nose, because again, the nose protrudes out from the face so much, it captures a lot of the light. And because it's blocking the other side of it, it's casting shadows over to that side. So in this case, I'm going to try to hold it up in this direction so that you guys could see the light source is coming from this direction. So again, the nose is protruding out, it's casting a shadow over to the other side, but because the cheekbone also has a peak to it, it also has it's raised, it's also gonna poke its head out and get some sunlight. So the same thing with other features here. Any area that has like a peak to it will bask in the sun. Basically, it'll get some sunlight on top of it, and that's where you're gonna see a lot of highlights there. Parts of the lip as well. There are areas of it, and I have to work on this one, areas where light sources are going to hit the lip. So the part that folds upwards is going to capture some of the light. Also the chin, as you can see here, the chin is also protruding out, so it's capturing a lot of the light source as well. And as it curves away from the light source, from the camera, you could see that it gets darker and darker gradually. Same thing for the eyebrow, the brow line, because those areas do have curvature to them. There's a peak to that curvature where it captures the light, and it indents. It goes inwards towards the nose, the bridge of the nose, right here. So you're gonna see the shadows lightly dissipating. Well, more so since it is coming from this direction, it's going to dissipate going in from this side, and then it's going to capture light going here and then dissipate going around. So this is an excellent model for you guys. You can buy some clay. It's not expensive. I'm going to say it's $15 probably for a big block. And take time and construct yourself a head. And that way you can use it as a light source, as a model for a light source, rather than just having a ball, for example, or rather than having like a square, to give you a better understanding of how light hits the object. You can actually have a face there for you to be able to maneuver and see, like, well, what if I have it angled this way? What if I have it angled that way? You can also see how face features change when you change the direction of them to help you draw them out on paper. It is slightly for advanced or intermediate students, but I encourage you guys to play around with it, even if you're brand new. One of the things that I actually wanted to talk about was taking risks, and how. And you hear it all the time. People say, like, you got to take some risks in order to get some reward, and don't be afraid to fail, and you're definitely going to fail at it. But it's a great training tool for you to be able to, first of all, get over a failure. You have to get back up. If you fail, you have to get back up and push yourself past that point. And that's an excellent ability to also transition other parts of your life as well. So if you could conquer that in drawing, and something that is as harmless as drawing, you can use that for other things in your life. Whatever it is that you're going through, you can remember that that is kind of the process of it. You're going to fail. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel bad. Oh, this didn't turn out. The drawing didn't turn out well. Or it sucks. I really don't like it. The best thing to do is the next day sit down and try to push yourself to do even better. And if it doesn't turn out well, push the next day to do even better. Yeah, and continuously do that. It's just this ability to overcome obstacles in a sense, right? And you can use that as fuel for other points in your life. Like, hey, I remember there was a point where I was really struggling with the drawing. How did I get past it? I pushed myself past it and I did it. And that's great. That's a great thing to have under your belt, under your tool belt, being able to get over that. There's so many people who I interact with who don't push themselves past their failures, or they're like, oh, I just wasn't like, you talk about what they used to do, and they're like, I just wasn't good at it. And that just immediately says they gave up. They weren't able to get over the discomfort, the failure, the frustration, the doubt that creeps into your head. And that's something that happens with drawing as well, all the time. It's a process prior to you leveling up. You start to feel like, is this going to go anywhere? You start questioning it, and then you wonder, do I have it to push myself and get to where I want to be? And then you do it. You sit down and you start practicing all this stuff until you get there. The determination. It teaches you determination. And that's a really vital lesson. It's a really vital skill to develop as well. So as you could see, there are certain things that you will go through in drawing that also kind of take place in life as well. Say if you're like, you're in college or in high school and you're studying for something and you didn't get a good grade on it, or you failed, right? What do? Do you just say, oh, I just suck at this, I'm never going to do it ever again, or I'm going to always fail at it, I'm not even going to try? Or you just kind of have this like defeatist attitude about it, right? When you're just like, I'm just not smart enough, or I'm not good enough for this, or whatever it is. That's an approach that a lot of people take, or a lot of people have, also depending on what their environment is. If people are encouraging them to do it or discouraging them from doing it, that's something that happens. And it could be very similar to drawing as well. If you fail at a drawing, you could be like, oh, I'm not really good at this, maybe I shouldn't even bother doing it. Or you could take the other route and you could say, yeah, I didn't do well, I'm gonna have to study harder. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna get 10 more points than I did now on my next test. So the same thing for drawing. You could be like, I didn't turn out to be well this time, so maybe instead of practicing for half an hour, I'll practice an hour, and I'll really try to nail down what I don't like about it. So if let's say the eyes are weird or wonky, or you couldn't get it down, I'm gonna do something to practice eyes and make sure that they turn out great, or lips, or whatever. And then just because of that determination to overcome that obstacle, you end up pushing yourself to get there. The same thing for, let's say, that test that you're studying for. You could either give up on it and just say, oh, whatever, I failed, so maybe I'm just not smart enough. Or you could just be like, well, I didn't do so well, I'm gonna have to study more next time around. And you could use both of those as fuel for other examples. So if you are, let's say, studying for something and you're also learning to draw, and you end up studying really hard for the test and getting the goal that you wanted, you could be like, well, if I did it for that, I'm sure I could do it for drawing as well. I could sit down and really figure out, what do I need to do to improve? What do I need to do to get better? You could study your drawing and you could look at it and you could be like, I don't like this about it, so maybe I should take time and learn more about that. If for example, in a test that you were studying for, if you didn't understand a certain year in history, you'd go back and you would study that year again. You could be like, okay, what happened in 1776? Let me really get that down. Let me write it down. Let me repeat it. Whatever you could do in order to get better, or memorize it better, understand it better. So that determination determines whether you're going to get better, or if you're just going to sulk and give up. And then, once you do that, you're like, okay, well, I was able to do that with that. Let me go back to my drawings. Like, what didn't I like about it? Or like, maybe I should go and sit down. As I mentioned, like, if you really are terrible at hands, for example, you could be like, I need to get better at hands. What do I need to do that? Let me get a book. Let me sit down and do some research online, see if I could find any really good books that have to deal with hands, and take some time and do that. And then, once you find that book, be like, okay, now I have to sit down and I have to push myself to get all these down as good as possible, as close to that drawing or example as possible. And do exactly that. And you will see how even just a little bit of improvement is already a step forward. Because now you're drawing better than you did before. Your drawing ended up better because of this than how you did it before. Maybe you were too quick. Maybe you were kind of messy. Maybe you didn't focus. Try to figure out, pinpoint what you could do different this time. And just like anything else, you do it over and over again, and you will gradually get better. It's not a contest. It's not how fast you can get better at it. It's just about understanding the material. The same way as when you were learning to read, right, or learning to write, when you recited the alphabet, or when you wrote down certain words or whatever it was, you didn't immediately recognize them, right? You had to take some time, you had to learn it, and then eventually now you're reading much faster, right, than when you did when you first started learning. So it's the same idea. You're not going to like the pace that you're going in. You're going to be like, oh, I'm really slow. But with that determination comes a result. And you will see eventually how you're struggling less and less because you're taking more time to really ingrain it into your memory, in your mind's eye, what the hands look like by doing it every day. You're refreshing your memory. And the gap between the time that you sat down to study it and the next time that you do it is very short if you're doing it every day, right? You're only 10 hours away from the last time that you did it, as opposed to, let's say, 48 hours or 72 hours. Like, that's a really big gap from the last time that you sat down. So it's going to take you a little bit more to refresh your mind and get to that point, so if you take the time to do it every day, that gap is always short, and you ingrain it more and more into your head, and you're able to remember features a lot better, as opposed to, let's say, 72 hours later. So it's a really important detail. That's a really important thing to recognize, when it comes to any form of studying. Really, it's just the same idea. You don't need to have super amazing memory in order to get good at something. There are people who have it, and that's great for them, but you're not focused on them. You're focused on developing the skill, developing what you like to do, what you want to devote a lot of your time to, because you enjoy the process, not because you want to be like that person with amazing memory or whatever. So, forget about that. And as I mention always, competition is not a place for art. There are people who function on it, but the best kind of art comes from loving the process and loving the field itself, not using it as like an ego stroke and being like, I'm so good at blah, blah, blah. It's more about really liking to draw, liking to paint, liking to play the music or whatever else. That's what it's really about. So don't worry about time. This is something, don't worry about how long it's going to take you, that is. I mean, time is important, as I mentioned. 72 hours as opposed to 10 hours or 15 hours apart or whatever is a difference. It really does determine how quickly you're going to remember things and level up. Same thing with exercising. You can't expect to go to the gym twice a week and after like a couple of weeks to be like ripped and muscles defined, or gaining muscles or losing weight or whatever it is that you're aiming for. You have to do it consistently. You have to put in some good amount of time. You got to feel that burn. You got to dedicate yourself to it, and you will see some results. So determination is like one of the biggest factors when it comes to learning anything. So another thing to quickly reiterate, when you are drawing these faces and you are doing these realistic renderings of the face or whatever other part of the body, the important thing to remember is nothing is as white as the paper. Maybe some highlights might be good, very subtle, and also very gradual transition from midtones to highlights. and the reason why I say this is something that I discussed before, is you'll see some people who do really good, like hyper realistic renditions of celebrities or somebody's dog or something, but because they neglect this gradual transition and this idea that nothing is as white as the paper, their drawing looks flat. So despite all the detail, despite all the shading that they put in there, just neglecting that concept flattens the image, because it becomes very much close to the paper itself. There isn't dimension, there isn't anything that gradually works its way away from the paper. If a lot of parts of it are still white as the paper, then it just happens to make the image look flatter. But what you're seeing here is a gradual process. You're seeing from light eventually working its way into dark. And that's important because when you're first starting out the drawing, you're still making sure that things are aligned and things are proportionate. They look as they do in the reference. You're still testing things out. So in order to, let's say, not have to start all over again, flip the page and be like, oh, this didn't turn out well, I put in some time, but it's now too dark and I can't erase things, I'm going to have to move on to another. In order to avoid all that, it's great to draw lightly. You can erase, like in this example, I noticed that I made her face shape a little too narrow. So now I could erase, and then I could build back up gradually. And when everything is in place, everything is according to how you like it, then you could start pressing harder. You could start doing darker shades. But sometimes people do that. They start out really light and they never take the risk to go darker. They just kind of stay in a very light area. And that's what makes the drawing look flat. It's too light in a sense. So you got to find like that nice middle ground. And then gradually build yourself up to having like shadows, dark shadows. And what's a great way for beginners to do that? Well, this is something I mentioned before. It has to do with this guy. Little notepad here. Here's some examples actually, just showing you how this is an opportunity for you to do very simple exercises. Just creating these like bars basically all over the page, going from highlight to midtone to shadow, and trying to train yourself to have this like gradual transition, darker and darker each pass you do over the entire thing. And it's a very fun exercise. It's kind of mindless. You're not focusing on anything. You're not getting too technical or anything like that. You're just training your hand-eye coordination, your ability to control your pencil the way you like it to. Making sure that you're not pressing hard throughout the entire time, and just getting used to more of a relaxed process rather than just like really holding it down and like, making sure every single line is exact. Like, no, just take your time and have like a relaxed session of practicing shading like this. And you could do that all over the page, everywhere. You could even do it on an object like a circle or whatever, and you could just practice and try to pop it out as much as possible with these like gradual gradations. Great exercise for beginners. Great way for you guys to improve that skill. That eventually transitions into being able to do it on a face and making that a very smooth process there. I'm satisfied with the placement. Of course, I could always do better. That's never in question if it's the best that I can do. But for now, for the sake of moving on in the stream, I'm going to say I'm pretty satisfied with the placement of all the different parts of the face, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. So I am going to start venturing into the next step of darkening the shadows, spending more time creating a smooth transition between all these different shades. And the smoother that transition is from, midtone, the highlights, midtones to shadows, the more and more real the image starts to look. So it's very important to take your time and do that. There's certain times where people press a little too hard in one area of the shadow realm, and that kind of breaks up the image. Because shadows also they mark indentation, they mark curvature. So if you're, for instance, in the shadow realm right here, and then you start pressing really hard in certain areas as opposed to where they actually belong, it's going to start to look as if though there are indents on the face where there shouldn't be. Or it just looks messy. It looks like a messy drawing. So you want to train yourself not to do that. A lot of beginners make the mistake of, as I mentioned, drawing too lightly. And a good way to work around that when you're totally new to the process of shading, totally new to the process of shading, I'm going to say for now, the best way to do it is to always go darker than you think. So at the beginning, when you are learning this stuff, go darker on all your shading gradually, as I mentioned. So once you do the first pass, you set all the parameters, you're satisfied with the placement of things, and you're in that next phase, go darker. Go darker on the midtones, go darker on the shadows. Really look at the subject and see how much of a smooth transition is it from highlight to midtone to shadow in this area? And look at your drawing and see if it's similar to that. Certain areas that you can compare to see if they match. So for instance, underneath the eye, it should be similar to the shadow here. If the shadow underneath the eye is too dark in comparison to an area where there is no light reaching it, then the drawing is going to look broken as well. It won't make much sense. Why is underneath the eye the darkest point when, let's say, this area is getting absolutely no light? That should be the darkest area. So that's a good note, when you are shading, just comparing areas to determine how dark should it really be. I'm going darker. And notice once I went darker for the shadow, I'm also going darker for the midtones that follow. And since I'm going darker on the midtones, I'm also gonna go darker in areas where there's highlights. And the more you spend time looking at the reference and trying to really determine, like, well, let me push my vision even further. Where are other areas where there's like midtones and shadows? There's always more to gain from the drawing. You know, it really, some people choose to stop at some point. You know, they're just like, I like it here. You know, this is good enough for me, and that's cool. But you could always push yourself even more and really notice even more detail to train your eye and to even push yourself further. Or if you're working on something and you want to just continue, you know, furthering, let's say, your shading technique, you could push yourself and try to see even more minute details with varying shading there. For example, in the hair, there are certain areas where you might find that subtlety. You know, it might look like it's all shadow, but if you look closely, there are certain areas that are even darker than others, and some that have slight highlight there. And it's just opportunity to excel or to level up even more and to really focus even more when you are paying attention to those details. So this area right here, the corner of the eye, inner part, like right here, that's an area that's not going to catch a lot of light. You know, if I'm going to angle it here, you could see it really starts to get pretty dark right around there. So the same thing here, I'm going to do that and then gradually darken around it as well. And it's not always so straightforward where, you got midtones being all the same. Midtones can range. They can be a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, but the extremes are highlights, midtones, and shadows. Like, you will see where the shadows are. Obviously, it's like something as dark as this. Midtones is really anything, like as you could see on the neck here, even on the face, there's certain areas where that range is wide for midtones. It's just the highlights, midtones, and shadows are just like a summarized concept. In reality, midtones have a way more gradation. And notice in this example, the hair is actually darker than the face. So in this example, it's a little bit more. I didn't really take the time to actually put in the shading for the hair, but that's because the light source is so extreme on the face. So kind of like, because there's so much light on there, it gives everything a more even gradation around the face. Whereas because the light source is so dramatic for both of these examples, you could see more distinction and gradation. So because the hair has shape to it, and certain areas are protruding out underneath where the hairline is, things are curving inwards. Because the hair has so much volume, it is casting a shadow, and it's closing out areas on the face from light source. So right underneath these areas where the hair is really jotting out, you'll see darker shadows. It's like similar to the bottom of the vase, where the vase is like sitting on top of like a table. Right under where the base of the vase is, you're going to see a dark rim there because there is no light going there. The vase is completely blocking that out. It's covering that area. So you're going to see a dark shadow right underneath the base of the vase, and this hairline area is kind of that same idea. But again, note that it has to do with where the light is. It's not always the case. So in this, for example, it's not going to be as dramatic because, as you can see, the light is directly on there. And it's going to illuminate more areas. But not so much in this example here. So we covered a couple of things today, despite only working on this model right here. We talked about motivation. We talked about risk, taking risks and getting over the failures when you take those risks and how they benefit in other parts of your life. When you do take those risks, you learn from them, you understand what you need to do to improve, to get better in whatever it is that you're doing. We talked about different forms of shading, different techniques for achieving various shades and various stage in the shading process. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. That's really what the intention of it is to make the process a little bit easier, to give you guys some words of encouragement, some motivation, some ideas of what to expect in the process. And just remember, keep practicing no matter what, how you feel one day, the next day is an opportunity for you to be better. So with that said, y'all, I'm going to have to end the stream here for Figure Drawing Basics. I am going to take a quick break and get ready for the next stream, which is the project stream. I'm also really excited about it because of last night's work. I did a little bit more work on the project itself because I was still trying to figure out what is going on, what's happening with this app. Why is it taking up so much of my resources? And then finally having to figure out what was causing it, getting a dramatic result towards the better. So I'm pretty excited to jump back into it and talking about that for a little bit. Because that discovery really showed, gave me a better understanding of the digital process in general. And certain pitfalls in my previous projects. I wouldn't say even pitfalls, but mainly just slowing things down dramatically, I would even say. All right, y'all. So if you guys enjoy this content, just remember to hit the subscribe button and the like button. They both help the stream grow. And I will see you guys in 5 minutes.